Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of Forestry podcast. I'm your host, Seth Stevenson, the communications coordinator with the Arkansas Forestry Association, and we are back this month with a new topic, a new discussion, and a new voice of forestry with us today. But before we hop into that, let me thank our sponsors this month, PotlatchDeltic, for their continued support of the show. We're going to hear a little bit more from them later on in the episode. And this month, we're actually going to be kind of starting what I hope becomes a bit of a recurring theme, to be honest with you. It's our Women in Forestry topic this month is what we're doing. I want to take this and kind of run with it and tell the story of some of the other women who work in our industry, just tell their story, kind of talk to them a little bit about what they've done in forestry. So we're going to start that today with Christy Weiss. She is the district manager for PotlatchDeltic. So Christy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Seth. I am excited to be here and proud to represent women in our industry.
Well, now, before we hop into it, Christy, I have been asked to kind of give this disclaimer really quickly up at the top, something quite different and new for me, but here we go. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of their employer. So with that out of the way, Christy, we are going to hop into it. Like I said, you're the district or a district manager for PotlatchDeltic. Can you just kind of give us a quick rundown of your, history, like your career?
Sure. My history is a little bit different than, I guess, the average bear. I grew up in a rural town in the northern part of British Columbia, Canada, surrounded by trees, swimming in the lake when I was a kid. Not many people around, a lot of trees. And my dad was a logger in northern British Columbia. And my brother followed in his footsteps, and his son, my nephew, also followed in his footsteps. So forestry's been a part of my family for a very long time, since before I was born. I have pictures of me with my dad, 4 years old, sitting on his lap in a skidder, bouncing across a clear cut. So it's in my blood. It's in my nature.
So what was it like, I guess, growing up in kind of that very rural setting in the logging industry with your dad?
It just seemed like a normal thing to me. It wasn't until I was older that I realized most people didn't really understand what forestry or the forest industry was. They kind of just thought forest products magically appeared.
Toilet paper magically appeared on the shelves and it was ready to go.
Right, or that there is a lot of thought and effort and intentionality about managing a forest. That it's not just going down and cutting down trees and taking it to the mill and walking away. That there is attending, a stewardship, a love for the land and the ecosystem. That what it provides to us, we nurture it so that it can provide that again for our children and our grandchildren.
And that's something too that we've talked about a lot on the show, I think, and this isn't, like you said, it's not just people coming in saying, "Oh, I want that," and stripping it and taking it off. It's these people love what they're doing and they love the land that they're working on, and so for them to have malicious intent and want to destroy something like that is just the furthest thing from their minds. So, and I'm sure that was the same way with your dad.
Absolutely. And one thing I've noticed, having worked in various countries and various states as well, is every forestry professional that I've ever come in contact with, whether you agree about the specifics or the details of how things are done, their intention has always been for the long-term sustainability of the land. That it's never just about industry or just about getting wood products, onto the shelf. That it's about ensuring a legacy of good forest management, and that's been universal across both countries. And it's been pretty wild to see that. It's heartening.
So let's kind of continue on your timeline here, Christy, if you don't mind.
For sure.
So you grew up in a logging family, sitting on your dad's lap in this skidder. So I guess what gave you the idea to be doing what you're doing today? Because you're not necessarily on the logging side of things anymore, correct?
Well, no, I am.
You are? Okay, cool.
I am. I'm not necessarily in the field anymore.
Gotcha. Okay.
No one's dropping me off in a helicopter in the middle of nowhere anymore, like it was in northern Canada. It's more the management side of things. There's a lot of higher level thinking that goes into planning out what we're going to do in the forest. We don't just randomly pick a spot and go cut some trees. There's a lot of long-term planning that goes into it. There's a lot of growth and yield and ensuring that we're going to have trees growing in perpetuity. And so I do a lot of that, a lot of harvesting logistics. My foresters take care of all the harvesting crews, and I manage the ship that we all that we all ride on, to try and get to a good stewardship level of our forest land. PotlatchDeltic owns about 930,000 acres in the state of Arkansas. In my district alone, with my team of foresters, we manage 350,000 acres.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot that goes on with managing that scale of property. So you have your harvesting logistics, you have your reforestation. We promptly reforest with suitable species. There's a lot of science that goes into it, and there's a lot of art that goes into it, and developing decision-making skills and critical thinking skills to ensure that we're doing the right thing. Because we don't know instantly. Unlike farming where it's just 1 year, our decisions have an impact on that forest for 25, 30, 40 years plus. So we want to try and make sure we're doing the right thing. And as I said, I was a forester for a long time, and I still am a forester, but as a manager, my job is to direct the ship of foresters so that we're going in the right direction.
Okay. And we'll kind of, if we'll put a pin in that for a second, and we'll kind of come back to it here in a little bit.
Jumping ahead on you.
No, you're good. You're totally good. This is, like I said, this whole kind of idea was to tell your story. And so this is all great. we were just talking, like you said a little bit ago, and I guess being dropped in the middle of northern Canada from a helicopter with a shotgun for the bears is is a thing that has happened for sure to you. So, well, can you kind of talk a little bit about your educational history? Like, what you study, go to college, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. To become a forest professional, most definitely in Canada with the provinces and the government, and most companies in the U.S. as well, require their forestry personnel to have a forestry degree. And that's to ensure that they have a foundation of good scientific knowledge to make good decisions for the forest. So my journey was a little different when I was younger. I didn't exactly think I was going to go into forestry. Typical 18-year-old, I'm not going to do what my parents did.
Oh, of course.
Right? So I initially kind of went in a vein of similar. It was more like biology focused. But within a year or two of going to school, it drew me right back into forestry. So that's what I ended up doing, is getting a natural resource degree, a Bachelor of Science, with a forestry major from the University of Northern British Columbia.
Okay, wow.
Right.
So like you said, that the forestry was kind of in your blood, and it kept coming back to you. So.
Yeah, I kept coming back to it.
So you graduate there, and do you stay in Canada at that time, or had you made it back? Okay.
Yes, I worked in Canada for about 14 years before I moved to the U.S.
Okay.
And one of the things that I did while I was in school that I would counsel any young professional to do when they're in university, thinking about a forestry degree, is to take an internship. And I did that with Louisiana Pacific in Northern Canada. Okay. And it was the best decision that I had made, because it confirmed for me that this is the career path that I want to do. I've seen many other of my my fellow students that when they did take that kind of internship, realized this is not what I thought it was, and I want to do something different. So I think it's important, not just for forestry, but any young professional, that find out what it's really like, and that's the career path you want to go down. That education simply for education may lead you down the wrong path. That you want to see where it leads you to, what you choose as your major, your degree. So that's one thing that I did that was key, that really solidified my path into forestry. And then I became a forestry technician, a young forester out in the woods, laying out flagging for cut blocks, silviculture, taking plots to ensure that we're reforesting properly. Like you said, I was even a tree planter for a little while when I was a much younger and fitter, and being dropped off a helicopter in the middle of nowhere. So, and I loved it.
Yeah.
It's been a great path for me, but that kind of led me more into management, and here I am now.
So nowadays, you kind of mentioned it earlier, but you're kind of focusing more on the planning side of everything, seeing the big picture and working on that, correct? Is that kind of what your day-to-day looks like now?
The day-to-day, and I kind of, when you're asked about what I do on a daily basis, it's different every single day.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
It's never the same thing twice. Like when you think about managing 350,000 acres, and you're the person that people go to for final decisions, it's everything. There's I have this issue. The hunt club's calling me that someone drove across your property with a dozer. Well, I got to go figure that out, or this happened, or there's a wildfire, or anything that could possibly happen in a forest, and adjacent to a forest. We have to manage that and manage through it and make the decisions. So on a daily basis, you could be doing the typical things you have to do, like harvesting logistics, ensuring you get all the products of the forest to the correct mills, under quotas and supply agreements and all that. We have a carbon credit easement that we manage. We have a conservation easement on the Morrow Big Pine that we manage that is an excellent example of wildlife habitat management. We have more working forest that we more intensively manage for civiculture and stand tending all throughout its life. Like we don't just plant trees and walk away. We keep going back to ensure that we're tending the forest properly. And all those things happen every day. Not all of them at once, but it's never the same day twice. So, one thing I didn't realize forestry would be is the amount of flexibility and adaptability that you have to have, and critical thinking, problem-solving abilities. But it's been fun.
Well, and that kind of speaks to the fact that a forest is a living, breathing thing. It's not,
Absolutely.
It doesn't stay static every single day. It's constantly changing, constantly growing, I guess is the right term here. But like there's things that are happening that you guys have to keep on top of, I guess.
Right, and you have to keep going back to the same areas, because what a particular stand needs now at 5 years old is different than what it needs at 15 years old or what it needs at 20 years old. So you don't make a decision and walk away.
Yeah.
You have to. It's a caretaking type position.
Okay. Well, Christy, I think if you don't mind, we're going to take a quick pause right here, and we're going to hear a little bit more from our sponsors this month, PotlatchDeltic.
At PotlatchDeltic, we know Arkansas, our forest, our land, and our people. We are here in Arkansas every day, sustainably managing timberland, producing lumber, developing Chenal properties, neighborhoods, and selling recreational real estate. If you're interested in having a place of your own for hunting, hiking, fishing, or just relaxing, visit our website at PotlatchDelticLandSales.com.
So much for PotlatchDeltic for their support of the show. So, Christy, we kind of left off talking about your kind of day-to-day, but I did want to ask, too, the 350,000 acres that you're managing, is that all here in the state of Arkansas? Are you kind of focused primarily on those acres in Arkansas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and in particular, those 350,000 acres that my team manage are in only a few counties in southeast Arkansas.
Okay.
And PotlatchDeltic, of the 930,000 acres they have, there's 3 districts. So myself and 2 other district managers, you manage our specific areas. And we are led by our regional manager, who has other districts in other states as well that he manages, and we meet monthly to discuss keeping the ship in the right direction.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So yeah, because I was curious about the structure, if it was just like a kind of you and then you report to someone else, but there's 3 of you in a sense.
In Arkansas.
In Arkansas specifically. Okay. Awesome. Now, one thing too that I'm curious about, and I'm sure other listeners are curious about, is why in the world are you in Arkansas? Like, what took you from Canada to the natural state?
Well, to be completely honest, Seth, I fell in love with an American.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with love.
That's right. So in doing that,
yeah,
I applied for a lot of jobs, that are in the U.S. I kind of wanted to move a little further south because I was quite far north in Canada.
And we should say too, real quick, we were just talking during the break. When we mean north, you mean north. Like you said, you hit, what was it, the eastern?
If you hit the Canadian border at the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains, keep driving about 14 or 15 hours north.
14 or 15 hours.
Yeah, straight north. and that's where I was, and where my dad was a logger out in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, that sort of thing. We were actually the start of the Alaska Highway.
Okay, I just wanted you to say that on
right.
for perspective for people.
Right. Yeah, I'm not one of the ones that huddle near the border.
Yeah,
we were way out there.
You were way up there. Okay,
yeah.
So sorry, continue.
Yeah. So when I say rural, it was rural.
yeah.
So I guess one of the things that's helped me in my career is you have to have persistence. Having goals for 6 months, a year, that whatever are good, but having goals more long term. I wanted to relocate, and I wanted to do it right, and make sure I was still in forestry and it was still on my career path, right? So I found, it took me about 2 years, but I found a company to sponsor my visa.
Oh wow!
To come to the U.S. to work in forestry, which was completely different. Forestry in the boreal forest in northern Canada is completely different than forestry in southern, it's southern Texas at the time, but southeast Texas, but in the South in general, with loblolly pine and all that. But essentially, growing plants, growing trees is the same everywhere. Right. So
that's what they tell me. Yeah.
Right. So I had to have some adaptability, flexibility, and figure all that out pretty quickly. But it was persistence. Like I said, it took me 2 years to get down here, but I did it. Nice. And I am a citizen now.
Nice. Excellent. Well, and you kind of touched on my next question too a little bit, Christy, is what are, I guess, some of the big differences that you've noticed working and living in Canada and working down here? Well, I guess growing, it's the same or relatively the same, but what are some of the differences?
The biggest difference is jurisdiction. That in Canada, it's public land. No one owns the land but the government or the people, quote unquote. And then the government, issues tenures and governs your actions, as a company, as a forestry company, through laws and regulations and policies. Whereas in the United States, it's privately owned, and you have investment funds and large landowners, or even a lot of small landowners that own 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres, that it's their private property. And then there's voluntary BMPs and different ways of managing, especially because of the species, but it's that jurisdictional difference. But at the end of the day, not one system has, I found, managed better than the other. Okay. And I think that comes to the underlying fact that as forestry professionals, no matter where we are, we care about doing the right thing.
Interesting. Okay. And what were you primarily, I guess, managing for up in Canada?
Aspen, cottonwood, spruce, and pine.
Okay. That was more of a me.
Yeah, it's the boreal forest
more than anything.
Right.
Gotcha. And that's just showing my lack of natural science right there. So when you said boreal forest, didn't register. But so Christy, we've kind of touched on your history, from growing up in the logging family in Canada and coming down here, falling in love, coming down to Arkansas, and kind of what you do for PotlatchDeltic. And one thing I do kind of want to talk about, and I by no means want this to be a controversial episode or discussion by any stretch of the imagination. We kind of talked before that I wanted you to tell your story with us. But something I do want to talk about, and feel free to tell me no, and we'll move on here. But the forestry industry, I think, has a pretty big stigma of being a primarily male-dominated industry. And we work with a lot of people in the industry, and they are male. But I say that there is a switch kind of happening, or a change happening, where more people like yourself, more females, are coming into the industry. They're coming in, they're well more than qualified, and they're killing it out there. So why do you think there's been maybe a switch, or why do you think this kind of change is happening, where more females are interested in this industry?
I think there's a few things kind of going on. One of them being, I think the industry as a whole is more welcoming, more inclusive. Some of the biggest supporters I've had in my career development, are my male counterparts. It's been by far more supportive than not, right? So there's that stigma from I guess decades ago, right? Because I am older, and there wasn't a lot of females in the industry when I first started out, and there are more now, and I think some of that too is, I think as women, when we think about what we should be doing as a career, or if we want a career, is what we should or should not do, is what is kind of how it used to be, whereas now it's more, can I do that? Do I want to do that? And I was lucky enough, and I think more and more, especially young girls, are encouraged by the people around them that support them, like my dad supported me. Yes, you can do it. If this is what you truly want to do, go for it. And I think there's a shift in, I guess, the support around young girls, and in young girls themselves, that it's not, we don't discount ourselves before we even try.
Awesome. Okay. Fantastic. No, that's great. And I think that's an excellent response to that. And so we'll kind of...
Did I throw you?
No, you did. No, that was great. That was a fantastic answer, and I loved it. So thank you for that answer. But so we're kind of wrapping up here, Christy. And one thing I do want to kind of talk to you about here is what does working in forestry mean to you? And this is kind of a big question, and I'm sorry to throw this at you here at the end.
That's
but
okay.
what does working in forestry mean to you? How much does it mean to you to be doing kind of what you grew up seeing your dad and your family do?
So when I first got into forestry, I had a real sense of, I can influence what happens if I'm within the system, right? So if I'm within the structure of forest management, I have a real impact on what does or does not happen. And I can ensure that there are healthy, sustainable forests full of wildlife and fresh streams and all those good things for my 2 young children and eventually their children. So, and that gives me a real sense of pride.
Okay. And speaking of kind of the younger generation, do you have any kind of advice for maybe young girls out there who are curious about something like this, or interested in the forestry industry? Well, they have a similar story where they're with their dad or their brothers doing, being out on a logging job or in the forestry industry. Do you have any advice for them?
Absolutely. One thing I'll preface is that this advice that I have is for any young person, male, female, whatever. I think first you have to look at yourself, do a lot of self-evaluation. Self-reflection is difficult, and I think that's an important first step. Is this what you really want to do? Investigate that. Have the confidence to ask other professionals. Find an internship. I mean, at PotlatchDeltic, I have an intern this summer that I'm helping to try and mentor him into figuring out, is this what you really want to do? What path of forestry do you want to take? Because being in operations is not the only path. You can be more in the finance side of things, more in the long-term planning side of things, more of the technology side of things. So getting an internship, as it helped me, it also helps the interns that we sponsor as well. So I would suggest that. And if you can't get an internship, then call people in the industry and ask. I don't know many foresters that wouldn't engage with a young person that's truly interested in what they do to help them guide their path. And the second thing, I guess, is make sure your education counts. You need a basis of science in the science of forestry, but there is an art to forestry as well that involves decision-making and problem-solving skills, just figuring it out, right? So work on those two types of things. And one of the biggest things I found that was, I guess, an epiphany to me as I got older in my career is that relationships matter, and they matter a lot. So develop your relationship building skills, your networking, how to talk to people, how to deal with confrontation, how to deal with conflict, and how to have a positive impact on your relationships.
Well, people joke about too, especially in this business, that they became a forester so they could just go out in the woods and be by themselves for however long. But the reality of it is, yes, you do get to do that from time to time, sometimes with the shotgun for the bears.
Right.
But it's a team effort. You're having to work with a bunch of different people to make sure that you are sustainably managing everything and that things are working how you're wanting them to work. So that relationship building is a big part of kind of what we're doing.
Right. Because to be honest, nowadays forestry has more of a spotlight on it, especially with carbon credits and ESG scores and just the light that sustainability has on the world stage. So we can't just hide in the woods anymore. And we need to advocate for ourselves, because you're correct that in general, foresters, and I was like this too, we just want to go do our thing and not advocate for ourselves. And I think, like with your podcast here, getting our message out that forestry is more than just tromping around in the woods. We have a real impact on the health and sustainability of the land in general.
Okay. Well, Christy, I think that's a fantastic spot to end it on. Is there anything else, though, that you want to say or you want to add before we kind of wrap this up?
No, I just want to say thank you to you, Seth. Yeah. And I appreciate being here and being able to tell my story with you.
Well, and thank you for sharing it with me. So I know I'm happy we were able to get this kind of set up, and you came down to our office today. So thank you for making the trip and for giving me some of your time. And we want to thank you guys for joining us this month as well. One more time, we want to say thank you to our sponsors this month, PotlatchDeltic, for their continued support of the show. And as always, we want to give a special shout out and thank you to some guy named Rob McCormick for the use of our theme song, The Same Love. That's off of his album, The Folkster. You can find more of his music on Spotify. And as always, we've got a link to his website with show information and music information in the description of this episode. And if you're curious about what we do here at the Arkansas Forestry Association, you can find us at arcforest.org. That's ARKFORESTS.org. So make sure you come back next month when we'll have a new topic, a new discussion, and a new Voice of Forestry.